Good morning. Thank you for coming to our childbirth education class today. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of movement in labor. There are lots of different classes that teach moms about movement. There's Dancing for Birth. There is the Spinning Babies website. Today, the first thing we're going to talk about is the structure of our pelvis. Then we're going to talk about the structure of the fetus's head. And then we're going to talk about the importance of baby becoming engaged in the pelvis, what engagement means, and then how movement encourages engagement in labor. And we're also going to talk about different things that we can do for movement with our pelvis. So let's start with the structure of our pelvis. So here I have our nice pelvis. And so different structures of our pelvis this is what women like to call our hips. This is actually the ilium. This is the iliac crest. This is our spine. Our spine is then attached to our sacrum. I'm going to turn this around. This is our sacrum. This is the bottom part of your tailbone, which is your coccyx. Now, the sacrum, actually, as that baby comes through, actually moves, and so does your coccyx, and everything moves out. This front part, which a lot of women complain about pain as the baby grows and our body releases relaxin hormones, is the symphysis pubis. If you notice, it's actually cartilage that attaches our bones together, and it overlaps. And as that relaxin happens, then it actually starts separating and opening. So that's our pelvis. Those are going to be the main structures of our pelvis that we're going to discuss. Then we've got our baby, a nice little baby. So the tops of the baby's head actually has, as most of you know, probably the soft spots, right? We've got the top soft spot on the top of the baby's head and the main one that's at the back. Now, as a baby before we get there, we've got the suture lines, which are the bones in the baby's skull, are not totally fused until that baby is about 2 years old. And when the baby comes through the pelvis, those bones mold over on top of each other so that baby can fit through our pelvis and then fit through the opening at the end. So our baby's head molds. So before we go further, I want everybody, if you're wearing a ring, or if not, then imagine that you're wearing a ring. If we have a ring on our finger, ideally our ring is going to not be too big, but you can't usually just pull a ring off. It doesn't work. It goes down a little bit, comes back, down a little bit, and comes back. But if you take a ring and you move it side to side and you have movement, then it comes off of our finger quite easily. So that is the same thing if we have a pelvis and a baby. We've got a baby and our body is contracting, and that contraction is used to push that baby's head down and through. Now, if you have contractions which are pushing that baby, and now we are moving our hips and different movements to adjust the baby's head into our pelvis, it allows that baby to, with the contractions and the movement, do a dance to be able to adjust the baby's head through our pelvis to then rotate to the point where the shoulders and the head are in this correct space to come through our pelvis and ultimately out the birth canal. Now, different ways that babies' faces can get stuck in our pelvis without the movement is if we are lying on our back, and those, we said before in the beginning, the sacrum and the coccyx, as our baby comes through, pushes down on that sacrum and pushes down on that coccyx, and it opens up the pubic arch and the opening of our pelvis. So if we are not moving and we are lying on our back, it does not allow us to have the biggest opening that we can. So as we move and as we dance, or as you move your hips, or you sit on a birth ball and your hips are doing hip circles, or you are walking up and down the steps and your hips are doing this type of rocking motion, it allows the hips to open. It gives, if you can see that ever so slightly, if you allow that opening, it opens ever so slightly. But on the bottom, on the top, it opens, so from the bottom to the beginning brim to bring that baby's head down. And then as labor progresses and that baby gets what we call engaged, which the top of that baby's head gets lower into the pelvic bone, then that's engagement. And as that baby's head comes down, then we now need to open up the bottom to allow that baby's head to mold through the bottom. So different types of movements that we can do is we can sit on a birth ball. Sitting on a birth ball allows you to not moving with your knees, but moving with your pelvis, sitting on the birth ball and rotating those hips around in a circle. We can do things like lifting up your legs and opening, dancing. Some people incorporate Zumba movements. There's movements called dancing for birth, which is more stomping. So leg up, leg up, leg up. And so that's what our pelvis looks like it's doing while we're doing that. What I would encourage my clients to do, what I would encourage my students to do now would be to practice and start incorporating different movements if that's not what you're used to during your pregnancy, so that when you go into labor, the thought of dancing in labor is not foreign to you. So your homework for this week is to figure out a type of exercise or dance movement, or order a birth ball and start getting used to moving your hips around so that when you go into labor, you are comfortable doing that.